Nari knelt beside her small garden and watched the purple flowers bloom under the pale morning light. The bioluminescent markings on her arms glowed soft blue as she touched each plant with gentle fingers. 3 years had passed since she came to this forgotten moon, and still the simple act of growing things brought her peace. The moon of Kalios Prime was not a beautiful place by most standards. The ground was rocky and hard, the air thin, and strange energy storms swept across the surface every few days. But Nari loved it here because no one else wanted it. Her people, the Velkorans, called places like this worthless. They preferred planets rich with resources they could take, or worlds full of weaker species they could conquer. Nari was different from other Velkorans. Where they saw war as glory, she saw only pain. Where they found strength in taking from others, she found strength in growing and healing. This difference had cost her everything: her family, her home, her place among her people. They called her weak and sent her away. She did not mind the exile anymore. Here on this quiet moon, she could tend her medical plants and conduct her research, without anyone telling her she was wrong. Her small research station was hidden in a valley between 2 tall rock formations. Solar panels powered her equipment, and a water recycler gave her everything she needed to survive. The morning routine was always the same. Check the plants, record their growth, prepare samples for her medical experiments. Nari was working on new treatments for diseases that affected many different alien species. Her people thought such work was foolish, but she believed healing was more important than fighting. As she worked, her markings shifted from blue to green, the color of contentment. This was how she wanted to spend the rest of her life: alone, peaceful, useful in her own quiet way. The explosion shattered her morning calm. Nari looked up from her plants to see fire streaking across the sky. A ship, smoking and spinning, fought against gravity as it fell toward her moon. The vessel was small, not much bigger than a transport craft, and clearly in trouble. Metal pieces broke away from its hull as it plummeted through the thin atmosphere. Her markings flashed orange with alarm. Ships never came to Kalios Prime. The radiation storms made it too dangerous for most species to visit. Whoever was in, that craft was either very brave or very desperate. The ship crashed about 2 kilometers from her valley, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. Nari stood frozen for a moment, her peaceful morning destroyed. She could ignore this, she told herself. Whoever had crashed was not her responsibility. She had chosen isolation for a reason. But even as she thought this, her medical training took over. Someone might be hurt. Someone might be dying while she stood here debating with herself. Nari gathered her medical supplies and climbed onto her small transport vehicle. The ride to the crash site was bumpy over the rocky terrain. As she got closer, she could see the ship more clearly. It was indeed small, built for exploration rather than war. Strange markings covered its hull, symbols she did not recognize. The craft had carved a deep furrow in the ground before coming to rest against a large boulder. Smoke rose from several holes in its metal skin. Nari approached carefully, her scanner checking for dangerous radiation levels. The readings were high but not immediately fatal. She found the airlock on the side of the ship. The door was partially open, damaged in the crash. Nari squeezed through the gap and entered the vessel. The inside was cramped but well organized. Everything was built for someone much smaller than a Velkoran. The pilot's chair held an unconscious figure that made Nari stop and stare. It was a creature she had only heard about in reports from the outer territories. A human. Male, she thought, based on the broader shoulders and facial structure. His skin was darker than she expected, and his black hair was cut short. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead, and his breathing was shallow. Humans were considered a minor species by galactic standards. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel and rarely ventured far from their home systems. What was one doing in this remote region of space? Nari checked her scanner again. The human should be dead. The radiation levels in this area were lethal to most species, and the crash had exposed him to even more. Yet his vital signs, while weak, showed he was very much alive. She managed to free him from the damaged pilot's chair and carry him outside. Humans were smaller than Velkorans, and this one was not heavy. As she placed him on a medical stretcher, she noticed something strange. His body temperature was higher than normal for most species, and his heart rate was elevated even in unconsciousness. The journey back to her research station took longer with an injured passenger. Nari kept checking his vital signs, expecting him to die at any moment. The radiation exposure alone should have killed him. Add the physical trauma from the crash, and no normal being could survive. But the human's condition remained stable. More than stable, actually. His vital signs were slowly improving during the trip. Nari brought him into her medical bay and began a full examination. Her equipment was designed to work with many different alien physiologies, and she soon had detailed scans of the human's body. What she saw made her markings flash between orange alarm and purple confusion. The human's cells were changing. Not dying from radiation damage as they should be, but actually adapting to it. His bone density was increasing, his muscle tissue was strengthening, and his blood chemistry was shifting to handle the toxic atmosphere of the moon. This was impossible. No species could adapt so quickly to hostile conditions. Evolution took thousands of years, not hours. Nari cleaned and bandaged the human's wounds, her mind racing with questions. She had studied the biology of dozens of species, but had never seen anything like this. The human was literally transforming himself to survive in an environment that should kill him. As she worked, she noticed other strange things. The human's hands showed calluses from manual labor, but also fine scars that suggested precision work. His clothing was practical but well-made, designed for someone who spent time in dangerous places. Around his neck hung a small metal pendant with symbols she did not recognize. The most puzzling thing was his equipment. The human's pack contained medical supplies, not weapons, food rations, water purification tablets, and emergency shelter. Materials filled the rest of the space. This was not the gear of a warrior or explorer seeking glory. This was the equipment of someone who wanted to help others. Nari finished her treatment and sat back to watch the human sleep. Her markings had settled into a steady blue, the color of deep thought. In all her years of medical practice, she had never encountered anything like this being. His mere existence challenged everything she thought she knew about biology and evolution. The human stirred slightly, his breathing becoming deeper and more regular. Whatever was happening to his body, it was working. He would live, at least, for now. Nari realized her quiet life had just become much more complicated. She could have left the human to die in his crashed ship. She could still take him back there and let nature take its course. But her healer's instincts would not allow. And besides, she was curious. This human represented something new and strange in the galaxy, something that might be important. As the pale sun of Kalios Prime set behind the rocky hills, Nari made her decision. She would care for the human until he recovered. She would study his remarkable biology and try to understand how he survived. The impossible. She did not yet know that this choice would change everything about her carefully ordered, peaceful existence. She did not know that the human would challenge not just her understanding of biology, but her understanding of strength, courage, and what it truly meant to live a meaningful life. For now, she simply watched him sleep and wondered what tomorrow would bring to her once quiet world. The human woke slowly, his eyes opening to focus on the metal ceiling above him. Nari watched from across the medical bay as he turned his head carefully, taking in his surroundings without panic or fear. Most beings would have been confused or frightened to wake up in an alien facility, but this human seemed calm. His eyes found her sitting in the corner, and he studied her face for a long moment. Nari's markings flickered nervously between blue and orange as she waited for his reaction. Would he be afraid of her? Angry? Suspicious? Instead, the human slowly sat up and spoke in careful, broken galactic standard. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough from sleep. "You saved my life." Nari was surprised by his first words. Not, "Where am I?" or "What are you?" but gratitude. She moved closer to check his vital signs, noting that his adaptation to the moon's environment was continuing. His body temperature had stabilized at a level that should be perfect for this atmosphere. "You should be dead," she told him honestly. "The radiation here kills most species quickly. Your ship crash was very bad, but you are healing." The human nodded as if this information was not surprising. "My name is Jinho," he said. I am from Earth. What is your name? Nari, she replied, checking his wounds. They were healing much faster than should be possible. I am Velkoran. You are on Kalios Prime. It is not safe here for most beings. Jinho looked around the medical bay with obvious interest. But you live here, he observed. You have made it safe for yourself. There was no judgment in his voice, only curiosity. Nari found this strange. Most species she had met were quick to criticize or question choices they did not understand. I came here because no one else wants this place, she admitted. I wanted to be alone, and now I have disturbed your peace, Jinho said, concern crossing his features. I am sorry. When I am well enough, I will leave so you can have your quiet life back. Nari's markings shifted to purple, a color she rarely displayed. The human was worried about her, not himself. Even injured and stranded on a hostile world, his first concern was whether he was causing problems for someone else. Over the next few days, Jinho proved to be an unusual patient. He asked thoughtful questions about her medical equipment and research. He listened carefully when she explained her work developing treatments for cross-species diseases. Most importantly, he did not complain about his situation or demand special treatment. What were you doing in this region of space? Nari asked one morning as she changed his bandages. This area is marked as dangerous on all navigation charts. Jinho's expression grew serious. I was carrying medical supplies to the Kepler colonies. There is a plague affecting several worlds in that system. Many different species are sick, and the local governments cannot produce enough medicine. That is very dangerous work, Nari observed. The Kepler system is in disputed territory. Many war fleets patrol those areas. Yes, Jinho agreed. My ship was attacked by raiders 3 days ago. I had to flee into the dead zone to escape them. I thought it was better to risk the radiation storms than let the medicine be destroyed. Nari stared at him. You risked your life to protect medical supplies for strangers? The medicine would have helped thousands of people, Jinho said simply. The risk to one person seemed acceptable. This answer troubled Nari deeply. In Velkoran society, such thinking was considered foolish weakness. Yet looking at Jinho, she did not see weakness. His body had adapted to survive conditions that would kill most beings. His calm acceptance of danger suggested inner strength, not cowardice. As Jinho grew stronger, he began helping with small tasks around the research station. Nari was amazed by his knowledge of plants and medical procedures. When she mentioned this, he smiled. Before I became a ship pilot, I was a doctor, he explained. I studied biology and medicine on Earth, then xenobiology when we made contact with other species. I learned to fly ships because I wanted to bring medical aid to places that needed it. You gave up being a doctor to become a pilot? Nari asked, confused. I am still a doctor, Jinho corrected gently. I just practice medicine in a different way now. Sometimes the best healing happens when you go to where the sick people are, instead of waiting for them to come to you. This philosophy was completely foreign to Nari. Velkoran society was built around taking what you needed, not giving what others needed. Yet Jinho's approach made sense in a way that troubled her. Working beside him in her garden, Nari learned more about human society. Earth was apparently a world where hundreds of different cultures had learned to cooperate instead of conquering each other. Humans had developed advanced technology not through warfare, but through sharing knowledge and resources. That sounds impossible, Nari said one day as they tended her medicinal plants. How can different groups work together without fighting? It is not always easy, Jinho admitted. We have conflicts and disagreements, but we learned that we accomplish more by helping each other than by fighting each other. My people would call that weakness, Nari said quietly. Jinho was quiet for a moment, his hands gentle as he watered a delicate flowering vine. What do you call it? He asked finally. The question caught Nari off guard. What did she think about human cooperation? Her markings shifted through several colors as she considered. Blue for thoughtfulness, green for peace, and then that strange purple again. I think, she said slowly, that your way creates more than it destroys. Jinho smiled at this. Creating is harder than destroying, he said, but the results last longer. That evening, as they shared a simple meal, Jinho told her stories about Earth. He described vast cities where different human cultures lived side by side, sharing art and music and food. He talked about universities where knowledge was freely exchanged between all who wanted to learn. He spoke of hospitals where anyone could receive treatment, regardless of their ability to pay. "It sounds like paradise," Nari said, though her markings showed confusion. "Oh, it is not perfect," Jinho laughed. "We have many problems: poverty, crime, environmental damage. Some humans are selfish or cruel, but most of us try to make things better, not worse. How do you deal with the selfish ones? Do you exile them?" "Sometimes if they commit serious crimes," Jinho said, "but usually we try to understand why they act badly and help them change. Exile often makes people more angry and dangerous, not less." This comment hit Nari like a physical blow. Her own exile had indeed made her angry at first, though she had channeled that anger into her research rather than violence. Was Jinho suggesting that her people's way of dealing with problems was wrong? "You think my people should not have exiled me?" she asked carefully. Jinho studied her face for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I think," he said gently, "that anyone who chooses healing over fighting, growing over taking, peace over war, is exactly the kind of person their society needs most." Nari's markings blazed bright purple, so intense that both of them were surprised. She had never displayed such strong color before. Jinho looked curious rather than alarmed. "What does purple mean?" he asked. Nari touched her arm, watching the strange glow fade slowly. "I am not sure," she admitted. "It is not a color my people usually show. I have been displaying it since you arrived." "Perhaps it means something new is happening," Jinho suggested. "Something that did not exist before." Over the following days, Nari found herself thinking constantly about Jinho's words and stories. The human way of life seemed impossible, yet here was proof that it worked. Jinho himself was evidence that cooperation and compassion could create beings of remarkable strength and adaptability. Meanwhile, Jinho's physical transformation continued to amaze her. His body had not only adapted to the moon's hostile environment, but was actually thriving in it. His strength and endurance were increasing daily. Most incredible of all, he seemed to be developing an intuitive understanding of her bioluminescent communications, responding appropriately to color changes he should not be able to interpret. "How are you learning to read my markings?" she asked one day as they worked together in the garden. Jinho paused, considering the question. "I watch how the colors change with your mood and words," he said. "Blue when you think deeply, green when you are content, orange when you are worried. It is like learning a new language." "But you understand meanings that took me years to learn," Nari protested. "Perhaps," Jinho said thoughtfully, "it is because I am trying to understand you as a person, not just as an alien species." This simple statement shook Nari to her core. No one had ever tried to understand her as an individual before. To her own people, she was a failed Velcorin. To the few other species she had encountered, she was just another member of the warrior race. But Jinho saw her as Nari, not as a representative of her species, but as herself. That night, as she watched Jinho sleep peacefully in the medical bay, Nari realized that her carefully constructed quiet life was changing in ways she had never expected. The human had brought more than just his strange biology to her isolated moon. He had brought new ideas about strength, cooperation, and what it meant to truly live rather than merely survive. Her markings glowed soft purple in the darkness as she wondered what would happen when Jinho was fully healed and ready to leave. Would she return to her solitary existence? Or had she learned too much about human ways to ever be satisfied with simple isolation again? 3 weeks had passed since Jinho's crash, and Nari found herself looking forward to their morning conversations in the garden. The human had recovered completely from his injuries, his body now perfectly adapted to the moon's harsh environment. More than that, he seemed to thrive here in ways that continued to puzzle her medical training. Today, he was teaching her about something called crop rotation, a farming technique from Earth that could improve the health of her medicinal plants. As he explained how different plants could help each other grow, Nari watched his hands move gently among the stems and leaves. There was a reverence in how he touched growing things, as if each plant was precious. On Earth, we learned that diversity makes everything stronger, Jinho was saying. When many different plants grow together, they protect each other from disease and share nutrients through their roots. Like cooperation, Nari observed, her markings shifting to thoughtful blue. Exactly like cooperation, Jinho agreed with a smile. Their peaceful morning was interrupted by the low rumble of engines overhead. Nari looked up to see a ship descending toward their valley, much larger than Jinho's crashed vessel. Her markings flashed orange with alarm as she recognized the sleek, predatory design. "Velkoran War ship," she breathed, fear making her voice tight. Jinho stood immediately, his body tensing as he read the danger in her colors. "Someone you know." Before Nari could answer, the ship landed near her research station with practiced military precision. The airlock hissed open, and a tall figure in dark armor stepped out. Even at this distance, Nari could see the warrior markings glowing red along his arms and neck. "Yuck," she whispered. The Velkoran warrior strode toward them with confident steps, his scan equipment leading him directly to the garden. Nari felt her old fear returning, the terror of facing her people's judgment again. Beside her, Jinho remained calm but alert. Yuk stopped at the edge of the garden and looked down at them both. He was larger than Nari, as most male Velkorans were, and his armor made him appear even more imposing. His markings glowed steady red, the color of aggression and dominance. "Nari," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "You have been difficult to find." "Hello, Hyuk," Nari replied, rising slowly to her feet. Her markings had gone pale, almost colorless with fear. Jinho moved to stand beside her, not in front or behind, but as an equal partner. Hyuk's gaze shifted to the human with dismissive contempt. "What is this creature?" Hyuk asked, not bothering to address Jinho directly. "His name is Jinho," Nari said, finding some strength in her voice. "He crashed here several weeks ago. I have been treating his injuries." "A human," Hyuk said with disgust. "I have read reports about this species. Weak, short-lived, barely capable of space travel. Why have you not disposed of it?" "Because he is not waste to be disposed of," Nari replied, her markings beginning to show flickers of silver. "He is a person," Yuk's red glow intensified. "You have grown even weaker during your exile, Nari. This proves what the Council always said about you." "Why are you here, Hyuk?" Nari asked, though she suspected she already knew. "To bring you home," Hyuk replied. "Your exile period has ended. The War Council has decided you will return to face final judgment for your cowardice and treason." "I'm not coming back," Nari said quietly. The words surprised even her. She had not planned to refuse, but hearing Hyuk speak of disposing of Jinho like garbage had awakened something fierce inside her chest. Hyuk's markings blazed brighter. "You will return willing or not. You are still Velkoran, despite your weakness. You belong to the Empire." "She belongs to herself," Jinho said quietly. It was the first time he had spoken, and his calm voice cut through the tension like a blade. Hyuk turned to stare at the human in shock. "Did this animal just speak to me?" Hyuk demanded. "I am Dr. Jinho Kang," Jinho replied with polite formality. "And yes, I spoke to you. Nari is not property to be claimed. She is a free being who can choose her own path." Hyuk laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "Free? Beings are not free, human. There are only those who rule and those who serve. Your species will learn this when we encounter you properly." "Perhaps," Jinho said calmly. "But today, in this place, Nari chooses for herself." The Velkoran warrior stepped forward aggressively, his hand moving to the weapon at his side. "You dare challenge me, creature? I could kill you with my bare hands." "Probably," Jinho agreed. "You are larger and stronger than me. But strength is not just about size and weapons." Hyuk's markings pulsed with rage. "Show me this other strength, human!" What happened next surprised everyone, including Nari. Hyuk lunged forward to grab Jinho, expecting easy victory over the smaller being. Instead, Jinho moved with fluid grace, using Hyuk's own momentum to redirect his attack. The Velkoran warrior found himself thrown off balance and stumbling past his target. Hyuk spun around, his face twisted with fury. He attacked again, this time with calculated precision, but Jinho was ready. The human moved like water, always just out of reach, always turning Hyuk's strength against itself. When the warrior's heavy fist whistled through empty air, Jin-ho was already somewhere else. "Stand still and fight!" Hyuk roared. "I am fighting," Jin-ho replied calmly, dodging another blow. "Just not the way you expect." Nari watched in amazement as the human continued to evade and redirect Hyuk's attacks. Jin-ho was not trying to hurt the Velcoran warrior, merely proving that brute force could be overcome by skill and strategy. But what shocked her most was her own reaction. As Hyuk became more violent and frustrated, Nari felt something she had never experienced before. Not fear for herself, but fury at watching someone try to harm Jin-ho. Her markings blazed silver, bright as starlight. Both males stopped fighting and stared at her. Silver was the rarest of Velcoran colors, displayed only in moments of absolute conviction. It was the color of those who would die for their principles. "Enough," Nari said, her voice carrying new authority. "Hyuk, you will not harm him." "You defend this weak creature?" Hyuk demanded, breathing hard from his exertion. "I defend someone who chose healing over hurting, growth over destruction, cooperation over conquest," Nari replied. "If that makes him weak in your eyes, then I choose weakness over your kind of strength." Hyuk stared at her in disbelief. "You have become completely contaminated by contact with this human. This proves that exile was not enough punishment." "Contact with Jin-ho has taught me things I never knew," Nari agreed. "But not contamination. Enlightenment." "The Council will hear of this," Hyuk warned. "They will send a full battle squadron to destroy this place and everything in it." "Then I suggest you tell them exactly what you saw here," Jin-ho said, finally speaking again. "Tell them that one human held his own against a Velcoran warrior without weapons, using only skill and intelligence. Tell them that there are ways of being strong that your people have never considered." Hyuk's markings flickered between red and orange, showing confusion beneath his anger. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that humans have survived and thrived on a world that produced thousands of predator species, all more physically powerful than us," Jin-ho replied. "We did not do this through conquest. We did it through cooperation, adaptation, and learning from our mistakes. These are strengths your people might benefit from understanding." "Impossible," Hyuk scoffed. "Only the strong survive. Only those who conquer endure." "Look at me," Jin-ho said simply. "I should have died in the crash. I should have died from radiation poisoning. I should have died when you attacked me. Yet here I stand. Not because I am the strongest or most aggressive, but because I adapt and learn and cooperate with those around me." Nari watched Hyuk process this information, his markings shifting through colors that showed deep confusion. "Everything," Jin-ho said, "challenged the fundamental beliefs of Velcoran society." "Even if what you say is true," Hyuk said finally, "it changes nothing. Nari belongs to the Empire. She will return with me." "No," Nari said firmly, her silver glow unwavering. "I will not return to a place that sees compassion as weakness and cooperation as failure. I will not return to people who would dispose of someone like Jin-ho simply because he is different." "Then you are a traitor to your own species," Hyuk declared. "Perhaps," Nari agreed. "But I am true to myself." Hyuk stood silent for a long moment, his markings cycling through rapid color changes that showed the turmoil in his mind. Finally, he spoke again. "I cannot return to the Council empty-handed. They will send others, many others, and they will not be as reasonable as I have been." "Then stay," Jin-ho suggested unexpectedly. "Learn what we have learned. See if there might be value in different ways of thinking." Both Velcorans stared at him in shock. "You invite your enemy to remain?" Hyuk asked. "I invite a person to make a choice," Jin-ho corrected. "Nari chose to save my life instead of letting me die. She chose to learn new ways of thinking instead of clinging to old ones. Now you have the same choice." Hyuk looked between Nari and Jin-ho, his expression unreadable. Around them, the pale sun of Kalios Prime began to set, casting long shadows across the garden where this strange confrontation had taken place. "I will consider this," Hyuk said finally. "But know that others are coming. Others who will not listen to words or be impressed by human tricks." As the Velcoran warrior walked, Back toward his ship, Nari felt Jinho's hand touch her arm gently. Hyuk did not leave as expected. Instead, his ship remained parked near the research station for 3 days while he watched Nari and Jinho from a distance. Sometimes he approached close enough to observe their work in the garden, but he never spoke or interfered. Nari found his presence deeply unsettling. She knew Hyuk from their youth, when they had been paired as potential mates by the Velcorin Breeding Council. He represented everything about her old life that she had tried to escape. Authority, aggression, and the belief that might made right. "He is studying us," she told Jinho as they prepared their morning meal. "Trying to understand what has changed." "Let him study," Jinho replied calmly, checking the nutrient readings on her medical equipment. "Sometimes watching how others live can teach important lessons." "You are not worried that he might attack again?" "He could have attacked at any time over the past 3 days, Jinho pointed out. The fact that he has not suggests he is thinking rather than just reacting. On the 4th morning, Hyuk finally approached them directly. His markings were dimmer than before, showing less aggressive red and more thoughtful blue. He stopped at the edge of the garden and waited for permission to enter. "May I work alongside you today?" he asked formally. Nari was so shocked she could not speak. Hyuk had never asked permission for anything in his life. Jinho, however, nodded immediately. "Of course," the human said. "We can always use extra hands." And so began the strangest week of Nari's life. Hyuk worked beside them in the garden, learning to tend plants with the same careful attention he had once applied to weapons maintenance. He asked detailed questions about Nari's medical research and listened thoughtfully to Jinho's explanations of human biology and culture. At first, Hyuk was clumsy with the delicate plants, his large hands too accustomed to gripping weapons and controls. But he learned quickly, and Nari was amazed to see his markings begin showing colors she had never seen from him before. Green for contentment when a seedling sprouted successfully. Purple for wonder when Jinho explained how Earth's diverse ecosystems supported each other. "This cooperation you speak of," Hyuk said one afternoon as they transplanted medicinal herbs. "How does it work when resources are limited? Surely the strong must take what they need." "Sometimes," Jinho admitted. "But we learned that sharing limited resources often makes them last longer than hoarding them. And cooperation can create new resources that did not exist before." "Explain this." Jinho thought for a moment, then pointed to the garden around them. "Nari grows medicinal plants here alone. She can care for perhaps 100 plants by herself. But with 3 people working together, we can care for 300 plants. The extra medicine we create can help more people, and those people might discover new treatments that help even more." "But what prevents the others from taking all the medicine for themselves?" Hyuk asked. "The same thing that prevents us from taking it all for ourselves," Nari said quietly. "The knowledge that we are stronger when everyone is healthy." Hyuk's markings showed deep confusion. "This defies all natural law. The strong survive by taking from the weak." "Maybe," Jinho said, "but humans learned that we could become stronger by making others strong too. A tribe where everyone is healthy and well-fed can accomplish more than a tribe where one person hoards everything while others starve." That evening, as they shared their simple meal, Hyuk asked the question that had clearly been troubling him all week. If this cooperation is so powerful, why have humans not conquered the galaxy? Jinho smiled at this. "Because conquering requires others to be weak, so you can be strong. But cooperation requires others to be strong, so everyone can be stronger together. You cannot do both at the same time." "Then you choose weakness," Hyuk concluded. "We choose to define strength differently," Jinho corrected gently. Their philosophical discussions were interrupted the next morning by the arrival of 3 more ships. These were not exploration vessels like Jinho's craft or single warrior, ships like Hyuk's. These were Velcorin military assault cruisers, bristling with weapons and carrying dozens of soldiers each. Nari felt her markings drain of all color as the ships descended. "The War Council has sent a punishment squadron," she whispered. Hyuk's own markings flashed between red and orange as he watched his fellow warriors deploy around the research station. "I did not call for them," he said quickly. "My communications have been blocked by the radiation storms." Then how did they find us? Nari asked. I was supposed to report back within 10 days, Hayuk explained. When I did not, they assumed I had been killed or captured. A voice boomed across the valley, amplified by the ship's communication systems. Nari of the Velkoran Empire, you are charged with treason and corruption of a warrior. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Jinho stepped forward, placing himself between Nari and the approaching soldiers. We need to reach a defensive position, he said calmly. There is no defense against this, Nari replied, her voice hollow. 3 assault cruisers carry enough firepower to level this entire moon. Then we do not fight their strength, Jinho said. We use their strength against them. Hayuk stared at the human. What do you mean? Help me get to their lead ship, Jinho said. I want to talk to whoever is in command. You want to surrender? Nari asked in confusion. I want to negotiate, Jinho corrected. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to convince the other side that fighting is not in their best interest. Before either Velkoran could protest, Jinho walked directly toward the nearest assault cruiser. His hands were raised in the universal gesture of peaceful intent, but his stride was confident and purposeful. The soldiers surrounding the ship raised their weapons, but a commanding voice ordered them to hold fire. A figure in elaborate armor emerged from the ship's airlock. This was clearly a high-ranking commander, his markings blazing red and gold with authority. I am Commander Tyke, the figure announced. You are the human that has corrupted our exiled traitor. I am Dr. Jinho Kang, Jinho replied with formal politeness, and I am here to discuss a peaceful resolution to this situation. Commander Tyke laughed harshly. Humans do not negotiate with Velkorans. You are insects compared to our might. Perhaps, Jinho agreed. But insects have survived on Earth for millions of years by adapting to challenges that destroyed much larger creatures. Are you threatening me, insect? I am pointing out that survival is not always about being the biggest or strongest, Jinho replied calmly. Sometimes it is about being the most adaptable. Nari and Hayuk had followed Jinho, staying close enough to hear the conversation. Nari's markings were cycling rapidly through colors of fear and confusion, while Hayuk's showed deep concentration. You have corrupted one of our own, Commander Tyke continued, made her weak with your human poison. For this, you will die slowly. Nari was never weak, Jinho said firmly. She was strong enough to choose her own path instead of following others blindly. She was strong enough to save the life of a stranger. She was strong enough to stand up for her principles even when threatened. If that is weakness, then I hope all humans can be so weak. Enough words, Commander Tyke snarled. You will watch as we destroy everything you have built here. Then you will die knowing that your cooperation has accomplished nothing. Before you do that, Jinho said, his voice still calm, I have something to show you. The human reached slowly into his pack and withdrew a small device. Commander Tyke's soldiers tensed, but Jinho moved with deliberate care to show he posed. No threat. This is a communication beacon, Jinho explained. It has been recording everything that has happened here for the past month. The recording shows a human surviving in conditions that should be lethal, defeating a Velkoran warrior in single combat using only skill and strategy, and convincing 2 Velkorans to work cooperatively on a peaceful project. Commander Tyke's markings flickered with uncertainty. What is your point, human? This recording is set to transmit automatically to the human exploration fleet. If I do not reset it every 24 hours, Jinho continued. If you kill me, the transmission will go out. The human government will learn that Velkorans consider us a threat worth eliminating. They will also learn that humans can survive and adapt to conditions that challenge even your warrior species. So you will have given humanity both the motivation and the confidence to expand aggressively into space, Jinho explained. Right. Now, humans are content to explore peacefully and offer medical aid to those who need it. But if you convince us that the galaxy is full of threats that must be eliminated, we will adapt accordingly. Commander Tyke was silent for a long moment, his markings cycling through colors that showed deep thought. Around them, the Velkoran soldiers waited for orders. You are bluffing, the commander said finally. Perhaps, Jinho agreed. But can you afford to be wrong? If humans adapt the same way they did on Earth, your empire might find itself facing an opponent that grows stronger with every challenge you present. Nari watched in amazement as the human continued his quiet negotiation. He was not threatening the Velkorans with superior force or advanced weapons. Instead, he was using their own aggressive nature against them, making them consider the long-term consequences of their actions. "What do you propose?" Commander Tyke asked reluctantly. 6 months had passed since the Velkoran War fleet departed from Kalios Prime. Nari and Jinho had used the time to expand their research and rebuild Jinho's ship using salvaged parts and Nari's engineering knowledge. The vessel was now more than just a transport. It was a mobile medical laboratory capable of supporting their growing mission. The mission had evolved far beyond what either of them had originally imagined. What began as Nari's desire for a quiet life and Jinho's humanitarian supply run had become something much larger. They were no longer just treating individual patients or delivering medicine to specific colonies. They were pioneering a new approach to interspecies relations based on cooperation and mutual aid. Their first test had come when they responded to a distress call from a mining station in the Vega system. The facility housed workers from 7 different species, all suffering from a mysterious illness that their individual medical traditions could not cure. Nari and Jinho discovered that the disease only affected beings when they were isolated from others of their kind, but disappeared when different species worked closely together. "It is almost as if the illness feeds on separation," Nari had observed, her markings glowing with scientific excitement. "Or maybe cooperation itself has healing properties we do not understand yet," Jinho had replied. They had stayed at the mining station for 3 weeks, not just treating the sick, but teaching the workers how to maintain their health through cross-species cooperation. The results were remarkable. Not only did the illness disappear completely, but productivity at the station increased by 40% as different species shared knowledge and techniques. Word of their success spread through the comm networks that connected remote outposts and colonies. Soon they were receiving requests for help from across the sector. Pirates had raided the agricultural worlds of the Centauri cluster, destroying food supplies and leaving thousands facing starvation. Traditional relief efforts had failed because the affected species could not digest each other's food crops. Nari and Jinho arrived to find a desperate situation. Reptilian saurians could not process the grain that sustained mammalian Koreans. The insectoid Vrak needed mineral supplements that were toxic to both other species. Everyone was slowly starving while surrounded by food they could not eat. "We need to think differently about this problem," Jinho had said as they surveyed the refugee camps. "Instead of trying to feed each species separately, what if we find ways to make them able to help each other?" The solution came from Nari's research into cross-species biology. By developing enzyme supplements that allowed different species to process each other's food, she enabled them to share their resources effectively. More importantly, the shared effort of growing and preparing food together created bonds between species that had never cooperated before. This is not just medical treatment, Nari realized one evening as they watched Saurian engineers working alongside Vrak farmers to improve irrigation systems. This is social evolution. Their reputation grew, and with it came new challenges. Not everyone welcomed their approach to interspecies cooperation. The hegemony of pure worlds, an alliance of species that believed in racial segregation and genetic superiority, declared Nari and Jinho to be dangerous subversives spreading contamination across the galaxy. "They fear what we represent," Jinho observed as they read the hegemony's official condemnation. "The idea that cooperation can make everyone stronger challenges their entire social structure." "Will they try to stop us?" Nari asked, her markings flickering with worry. "Probably. But fear of change is not the same as power to prevent change." The confrontation came sooner than expected. As they approached the Rigel colonies to assist with a plague outbreak, 3 hegemony interceptors blocked their path. The lead ship's captain appeared on their communication screen, his face twisted with disgust. "Dr. Kang and the Velkoran traitor," Captain Voss sneered. "You will cease your contamination activities and submit to hegemony justice." "We are providing medical assistance to sick colonies," Jinho replied calmly. "This is hardly a crime. You are spreading dangerous ideas about species mixing and cooperation," Voss shot back. "The natural order requires each species to remain pure and separate. Your interference threatens the stability of civilized space." "Whose civilization?" Nari asked, speaking for the first time. Her markings glowed steady silver, the color of absolute conviction. One that lets people die of preventable diseases because helping them requires cooperation? One that values genetic purity over compassion and healing? You are a traitor to your own species, Voss replied. Velkorans are warriors, not nursemaids to inferior beings. I am exactly what Velkorans should be, Nari said firmly. Strong, enough to protect those who need protection. Wise enough to build rather than destroy. Brave enough to choose what is right over what is easy. The hegemony captain's face reddened with anger. Surrender now, or we will destroy your ship and end your corruption permanently. Before you do that, Jinho said, activating his ship's long-range transmitter, you should know that this conversation is being broadcast live to every colony, mining station, and research facility in this sector. Captain Voss's expression changed to confusion, then alarm. What are you doing? Showing everyone what the hegemony really stands for, Jinho replied. You are willing to kill medical personnel to prevent them from saving lives, simply because their methods involve cooperation between species. Across the communication channels, voices began responding to the broadcast, colony administrators expressing outrage, mining supervisors declaring their support for Nari and Jinho's mission. Even some hegemony member worlds questioning their government's actions. You will not be allowed to spread your poison, Voss snarled. But his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Captain, one of his subordinates said urgently, we are receiving orders from Hegemony Command to withdraw immediately. They cite diplomatic complications. The reality was simple. The Hegemony could destroy one small medical ship, but they could not silence the idea that cooperation was more powerful than segregation. That idea was already spreading across the galaxy, carried by the thousands of beings that Nari and Jinho had helped. As the hegemony ships departed, Nari felt a profound sense of satisfaction. We are winning, she said softly. We are beginning, Jinho corrected. Real change takes generations. Their work continued for another year, taking them to dozens of worlds and colonies. Everywhere they went, they left behind not just medical treatments, but new understanding about the power of interspecies cooperation. Species that had never worked together before began forming partnerships and alliances based on mutual benefit rather than domination. The breakthrough came when they received an unexpected message from the Velkoran homeworld. It was from Hyuk, now wearing the markings of a senior council member. Nari, his recorded image said, the council has been debating your case for months. Many still consider you a traitor, but others have begun to see wisdom in your path. We have decided to establish a new branch of Velkoran service, medical warriors who fight disease and suffering instead of other species. We would like you to lead this new division. Nari stared at the message in amazement. They want me to come home. Do you want to go? Jinho asked gently. Nari considered the question for a long time, her markings cycling through many colors as she thought. Finally, they settled on purple mixed with silver, the combination that had become her signature pattern. Home is not a place anymore, she said. Home is the work we do together, the lives we save, the barriers we break down, the future we build. Then we continue? We continue. But not just the two of us anymore. Nari was right. Their mission had attracted others who shared their vision. Dr. Kendra Mbeki, a human xenobiologist who specialized in cross-species genetics. Zrel, a young Saurian engineer who designed new medical equipment. Even Voss, the former hegemony captain who had tried to stop them, now worked to expose corruption within his former organization. They established a mobile fleet of medical ships, each crew containing multiple species working together to solve problems that no single species could handle alone. The network grew exponentially as more beings chose cooperation over conflict. Look what we have built, Nari said one evening, as she stood in the observation deck of their new flagship. Through the viewport, she could see a dozen other ships, maintaining formation, each representing a different species or alliance that had joined their cause. Jinho joined her at the window, following her gaze to the stars beyond. Remember when you wanted nothing more than a quiet life in your garden? I was wrong about what would bring me peace, Nari replied. I thought peace meant being alone and undisturbed. But real peace comes from knowing that you have made the galaxy a place where cooperation is stronger than conflict, where healing is more valued than hurting. And you are happy with this choice? Nari's markings glowed bright purple, the color that had come to represent her new understanding of strength and purpose. I am exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. As their fleet continued toward its next mission, Nari reflected on how much had changed since that morning when Jinho's ship had crashed into her quiet world.